friends, we are back for our next reading of the one and only Ivan. I'm going to just jump right into it because we are really meeting the downward portion of the climax of our book, and I'm very excited to see what happens with Ruby now that we know there is a humane zoo coming to the Big Top Mall to, as we know, to save her, and we are concerned if they are going to save Ivan and maybe Bob as well. So I'm going to get right back into it today, not waste any time. Hopefully we can read a little bit extra today. We are on page 241, and to recap, we remember that the zoo was there with the box trying to get Ruby into the box to go to the humane zoo. 241, poking and prodding. The lady comes again. She brings an animal doctor with an awful smell and a dangerous-looking bag. He spends an hour with Ruby, poking and prodding. He looks at her eyes, her feet, her trunk. When he's done with Ruby, he enters my cage. I wish I could hide under knot tag like Bob. Instead, I do a nice, loud chest beat, and after a moment, the doctor retreats. We're going to need to put this one under, he says. I'm not quite sure what he means, but I strut around my cage feeling victorious anyway. So maybe you can use your schema or your past experiences to know what going under means, and that typically means when you go into a surgery or into a medical procedure, they can put you under a certain type of medicine that makes you go to sleep and you don't really feel any pain or anything that's going on. Typically happens when you have a surgery. When I broke my collarbone, I had to go under to get a pin placed in my collarbone. So they saw Ivan and they saw him act like a gorilla, which is not really him, and act all tough, and then they said, I can't examine this gorilla, we're going to have to put him under, which is kind of scary. No painting. No one asked me to paint today. No one asked Ruby to perform. There are no shows, no visitors, unless you count the protesters. Max stays in his office all day. More boxes. I wake up from a long morning nap. Bob is on my belly, but he isn't asleep. He's watching the ring, where 4 men are placing a large metal box. It's me-sized. What's that, I ask, still blurry from sleep. Bob nuzzles my chin. I believe that box is for you, my friend. I'm not sure what he means. Me? They bought in a bunch of boxes while you were sleeping. Looks to me like they're taking the whole lot of you, he says, casually licking a paw. Even Thelma. Taking, I repeat, taking us where? Well, some to the zoo probably, others to an animal shelter where animals will try to find them homes. Bob shakes himself. So I guess all good things must come to an end, huh? His voice is bright, but his eyes are far away and sad. I'm going to miss your stomach, big guy. Bob shuts his eyes. He makes an odd noise in his throat. But what about you, I ask. I can't tell if Bob's just pretending to sleep, but he doesn't answer. I gaze at the huge shadowy box, and suddenly I understand how Ruby feels. I don't want to go into that box. The last time I was in a box, my sister died. When George and Julia come that night, George doesn't get his mop from his broom. He gathers up his tools and belongings while Julia runs to my cage. This is my last night with Ivan, she says, and she presses her palm to my glass. Mac fired my dad. Tears slip down her cheeks, but the zoo lady said maybe they'll have an opening there in a while, cleaning cages and stuff. I walk to the glass that separates us. I put my hand where Julia's hand is, palm to palm, finger to finger. My hand is bigger, but they're not so very different. I'm going to miss you, Julia says, and Ruby and Bob. But this is a good thing, really, it is. You deserve a different life. I stare into her dark eyes, and I wish I had words for her. Sniffling, she goes to Ruby's cage. Have a good life, Ruby, she says. Ruby makes a little rumbling sound. She puts her trunk between the bars and touches Julia's shoulder. Where is Bob, anyway, Julia asks. She looks around under tables in my cage by the trash can. Dad, she calls, have you seen Bob? Bob? Nope, George says. Julia's brow wrinkles. What's going to happen to him, Dad? What if Max shuts down the whole mall? He says he's going to try to keep it open without the animals, George says. He stuffs his hand into his pockets. I'm worried about Bob, too, but he's a survivor. You know what, Dad? Julie had a gleam in her eye. What do you think Julie is going to suggest about Bob to her dad? She had a gleam in her eye, which means she's happy or she has a thought. Let's see. Bob could live with us. Mom loves dogs. And he could keep her company. And, Jules, I'm not even sure I have a job yet. I may not even be able to feed you, let alone another mutt. My dog walking money... Sorry, Jules. Julia nods. I understand. She starts to leave, then runs back to my cage. I almost forgot. This is for you, Ivan. She slips a piece of paper into my cage. It's a drawing of Ruby and me. We're eating yogurt raisins. Ruby is playing with another baby elephant, and I'm holding hands with a lovely gorilla. She has red lips and a flower in her hair. I look as I always do in Julia's pictures, like an elegant fellow, but something is different about this drawing. In this picture, I am smiling. Click. The door to my cage is propped open. I can't stop staring at it. My door. Open. The giant box has been moved, and it's open too. The humans have pushed it against my doorway. If I walk through my door, I enter their box. The zoo lady, whose name is Maya, is here again. Click, yogurt raisin. Click, tiny marshmallow. Click, ripe papaya. Click, apple slice. Hour after hour, click after click, I look over at Ruby. She waits to see what I will do. I touch the box. I sniff the dark interior with a ripe mango, where a ripe mango awaits. Click, click, click. I have to do it. Ruby is watching me from between the bars in her cage, and this box is the way out. I step inside. Ooh. After I leave the box and step back into my cage, I get an idea, a good one. I tell Bob he can sneak into my box with me and live at the zoo. Have you forgotten? I'm a wild beast, Ivan, he says, sniffing the floor for crumbs. I am untamed, undaunted. Bob samples a piece of celery and spits it out. Besides, they've noticed humans are dumb, but they're not that dumb. So we can see that Ivan's trying to sneak in Bob to the zoo. Ivan, Ruby says, do you think the older elephants will like me? I think they'll love you, Ruby. You'll be part of their family. Do you think the other girls will like you? Ruby asks. I'm a silverback, Ruby, a leader. I pull back my shoulders and hold my head high. They don't have to like me. They have to respect me. Even as I tell her this, I wonder, excuse me, I had a yawn. I wonder if I can ever command their respect. I haven't had much practice being a real gorilla, much less a silverback. Do you think the other elephants will know any jokes? If they don't, I'll tell her. You can teach them. Ruby flaps her ear as she flicks her tail. You know what, Ivan? What? I ask. I think I'm going to go into the box tomorrow. I gaze at her fondly. I think that's a good idea, and I think Stella would have agreed. Do you think the other elephants will know how to play tag? I love tag. Me too, I say, and I think of my nimble sister racing through the brush, always just out of my reach. We are going to stop there. That's on page 254 today. This was a happy chapter, I think. Sometimes I feel like our book can be very sad, and it has a very important message that is real and honest about animals' mistreatment in our world and in our country. And it had many heartbreaking moments that made us feel empathy for our main characters, but I do feel like we are seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. If you are in my class, we're not going to have a Google form today. You can just listen along and move on to your next assignment. But thank you so much for tuning in with me, and I will see you tomorrow.